Good morning. It is Thursday at 11 a.m. and that means it's time for another installment of Maryland Snap Ed's Making the Most series. So if this is your first time joining us, this is a series of cooking demonstrations, and now we've added in gardening demonstrations and discussions of community food resources that are available to help families access food and prepare healthy food and make the most and reduce waste at a time when some folks might be struggling to put food on the table. So we've talked a lot about school meals, ingredients from school meals that you can use in your cooking, recipes that your kids would love if you have some leftover milks or fruit cups in the fridge. We talked about foods from your pantry. So things that you might already have in your pantry or that you might be accessing from community food pantries. And now we've pivoted to talking about another wonderful place to access food, which is the garden. So we are going to be talking today about spinach. We are joined by SNAP-Ed folks from Western Maryland. We haven't talked to anybody from the western part of the state. And we have a little bit of an April Fool's weather here. It's chilly, and I hear that it is snowing out in Garrett County where these educators are. So in a minute, I'm going to have them introduce themselves, talk a little bit about food access in Garrett and Allegany counties. But I do want to do my first usual reminders, which is if you are joining us, please introduce yourself in the chat with your county in Maryland that you're joining us from, or if you're from outside of Maryland, the city and state. And throughout the presentation, please put your questions and comments and we will respond to them periodically. But we're going to go ahead and get going. So I want to introduce Mandy Hawkins and excuse me, Tammy from, they are in Garrett County now, but they work in Allegany County, Maryland. So welcome, and we're going to hear from Mandy about school meals info for Allegany County and highlighting any food assistance resources that you wanted to highlight at this time. So good morning.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I am Mandy Hawkins, Healthy Food Access Faculty Assistant with Allegany County and Garrett County, I should say. It's kind of simple here in Allegany County. They are offering, of course, all returning students free breakfast and lunch when they're at school. Every school's a little different as far as how they are doing that, but if your students are back in the building, of course, they're getting breakfast and lunch. And then, of course, some students have chosen to remain virtual, and all schools in Allegany County continue to distribute meals each day from 12 to 1:30. For those students. So if you are a virtual student, you can just show up from 12 to 1:30 and you don't have to show an ID and that you can pick up your breakfast and lunch for that day. As far as some upcoming food assistance site events, the Western Maryland Food Bank on Frederick Street in Cumberland is having a pop-up pantry, which is exciting because they just come along every once in a while. And this one is Tuesday, April 6th from 1 to 4. And it's for anyone. You're supposed to wear a mask, pull up in the front of the building, which is on Frederick Street, in your car, stay in your car, and the items will be brought to you and placed in your car. So that's easy breezy. Again, it's on April 6th at the Western Maryland Food Bank. And then we have the Allegany County Food Drop sponsored by the Judy Center, again, starting back up, and that's at City Place on 14 South Water Street in Frostburg. And again, it's an easy drive up and they place the food in your vehicles. Both sites ask you to wear a mask. So don't forget that. Still, we have the protocol to follow, and the food drop is on April 22nd at noon. It starts at noon, and I know cars line up, so probably get there. The food may run out, so get there as soon as you can on April 22nd at noon. So I think that's all I have.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Yeah, we like to highlight what's happening in the specific counties in the state that we're broadcasting from, but always want to remind people that you want to check with your local school districts for school meals distribution, because it's different in every county. It also has changed over time as more kids have gone back to school. We are going to post a link to information For Garrett County schools, Garrett County has some sort of remote drop locations with buses, so that's best to access that through the website. But just always check your website of your school district for your county, or call if you're confused, because the information does change. The other thing that we're going to post in the chat is information about sort of statewide resources for finding food assistance sites, so food pantries in your area. We'll post that in the chat, how you can find the closest food pantry to you, no matter where you are in the state of Maryland. The last thing that we are going to share in the chat is a really cool resource that's available to families in Allegany County through the Evergreen Heritage Center. They're selling these Victory Garden kits, which are kits of plants for setting up a small food garden that you can, set up even using containers. And they've got instructions, and we're going to be pushing out some recipes through them. But what's really cool is that they are free to families that qualify for free and reduced meals. So we will put that link in the chat box. If you're in Allegany County, or you know somebody in Allegany County who might be interested, please share that information. And on the page, it tells you the code to put in at checkout if you qualify for free and reduced meals. Then it won't cost you anything, and then at pickup you have to sign an eligibility form that says that you qualify. So very cool, and a very good thing for us to promote as we are talking about growing some of your own food. So today, as we mentioned, our highlight is spinach. So spinach, has a good reputation from Popeye for making you strong. So I'm going to ask Tammy to talk to us a little bit about spinach. And I think while Tammy's chatting about that, Mandy's going to get going with the first step of our recipe.
Sure. Spinach is the star of the show in this recipe, and we chose to use fresh spinach. The recipe does say that you can use frozen spinach. We have washed up some fresh spinach here, and if I could get it the right way.
That's good.
It seems like a lot of spinach, but once you do get it in your skillet and start wilting it, it will really wilt down. Spinach, as you can see, it has a lot of veins in it. Spinach is full of fiber. We do need fiber to keep our digestive system healthy. This is insoluble fiber. So basically, we eat spinach. Fiber also has no calories. We eat it. It doesn't break down completely, but it goes through our system and does help our digestive system stay cleaned out. It also has calcium, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, which helps us our blood clot. So it's really considered a superfood for the fiber and for the vitamin and mineral content. So I'll put this in the garbage bowl.
And so, Mandy, would you just tell us real quick what steps you're doing there to get us started before we move on to our little growing demonstration?
So one of the first ingredients is one onion chopped. So we had the onion chopped, and we added it to a nice warm, I guess I should say hot skillet. And we're getting that onion nice and browned up.
With 1 tablespoon of oil.
Yes, only 1 tablespoon of oil. And then we're adding the spinach, and then we will put the lid on. And I think while we do the video, have our video next, the spinach will be cooking down. So it doesn't take very long. And like Tammy said, you'll see that it wilts and it cooks down. And even though it looks like a ton right now, you'll be surprised here shortly.
Yeah. It does have that beautiful green color, emblematic of spring. Something we talk a lot about with our students in SNAP Ed is eating colorful vegetables, especially dark colors, because the pigments in the plants, the things that give them color, really carry a lot of the nutrients along with them. So the darker the color, the more the nutrients. So
Absolutely.
Great. So while that cooks down, we are going to talk a little bit about growing spinach. So now is actually a great time to plant, even if it is chilly, or if you're in Western Maryland and it's even maybe snowing a little bit. Spinach loves the cool weather. And in fact, when it gets too hot is when its growing season ends. And farmers actually plant spinach all winter if they've got high tunnels or those little sort of unheated greenhouses that they grow in through the winter. So we have a video from a master gardener in Western Maryland who is going to show us how simple it is to just plant some seeds to grow some spinach. And just a reminder, if you have questions along the way, please post them in the chat and we can answer those after the video. So we'll pull that up.
Exactly. Yeah, like a little orange juice container that we've recycled. We've also have some water bottles that we've made into mini greenhouses that you just cut the top off, fill with soil, put your seeds in there, and then you can make little slits in the top and it'll slide back down over the top, and that makes a nice microenvironment to help increase your germination. So some things to think about is make sure you fill your container all the way to the top.
Yes, I should do that.
With soil. We're using a soilless growing media today that's made of mainly perlite, vermiculite, and peat moss is the main ingredients. So you can always remember that all the information you need to know about sowing seeds is going to be found on the back of your seed packet, like days to germination, how deep to sow, seed spacing, and if you're in a row garden, you know, how far apart your rows should be. This packet also tells me that it's 40 to 45 days to harvest. But remember, that's going to depend on how long your days are. So if you sow it really early in the season, like in January, those days are a little bit shorter and cooler. So it's going to take more than 45 days. So once you have your containers ready, the next thing you're going to do is take your seeds.
Yes, my seeds.
And sprinkle them across the top.
Yes, like that.
Don't worry too much about getting the perfect spacing. You'll probably have to go back and thin them out later. And then once you get your seeds in there, you'll just take a layer of soil and sprinkle on top. And then you want to pat it down and get good seed to soil contact. It's like tucking them in and making them feel nice and tight. That encourages them to grow, that along with the water and the right temperature. All right, for more information on gardening, you can follow us on University of Maryland Extension, Garrett County Master Gardener Facebook page, or you can visit the Home and Garden Information Center with University of Maryland. All right, happy gardening.
Happy gardening. Yeah.
So Master Gardeners are a great resource through the University of Maryland Extension that provide all sorts of information about growing. We are going to pull up some pictures now of what spinach looks like then when it starts to grow, and as well as some other sort of containers that you can use to grow spinach at home, because you don't need to spend money at the store to buy containers to grow your spinach. So we will also post some links she mentioned in the video, reading a seed packet. We have a video about how to read a seed packet, but I just wanted to show you here at the top left, those are spinach. Those are actually spinach in my tiny little garden outside. What they look like when they first start to sprout, actually the first two leaves look very different than the rest. We call them rabbit ears when they come up. So that's what they look like when they start to sprout. In the top right is a spinach plant that's sort of, it's not fully mature, but it's at that sort of baby spinach stage, and that's planted in the ground. In the bottom, there's actually a picture of spinach planted densely in a window box, which is a great way to plant spinach. You get that dense planting, and then you can actually just go down and cut those leaves off almost like you're mowing a lawn, and they'll come back for a second, maybe even a third time. If we go to the next image, what we have here are just some what we call upcycled containers. So these are things that you're not just recycling, reusing it, but using it for an even better purpose. So if you have a little wooden crate here in the top left, you can use, and then the other two are showing growing salad greens in those plastic salad mix containers. So you want to make sure you punch holes in the bottom of whatever you use so extra water can drain out. But what you really need with salad greens is nice surface area. You don't need a big deep pot to fill. That costs money to fill it with soil. You just need the surface area, and only maybe 4 inches or so of depth. And that surface area is going to allow you to grow more spinach or other leafy greens you can plant in this manner. I loved in the video she showed she had a shoebox. I mean, it might fall apart at the end, but that's fine. It's served its purpose. So that was really great. So wonderful. I hope you guys are all inspired. You can buy seeds and you can buy seedlings with your EBT benefits because those are food waiting to be grown. So please give it a try. Seeds, potting soil, and then a shallow container. And hopefully you can try growing some of your own spinach or other leafy greens. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Mandy and Tammy. And I did mute you guys just to make sure we didn't have interference. So you'll have to unmute yourselves. So you guys can go ahead and tell us what's going on in the kitchen.
Hello.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, like we said, today's recipe is called spinach squares. In my household, we just call this spinach quiche. It is without a crust. So my grandmother always used to call these kind of recipes impossible pies or impossible quiches. Of course, you do need something to bring it all together. So this recipe calls for 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of milk, a teaspoon of baking powder, because you do want this to rise up in the oven.
Now, could you use whole wheat flour in this recipe?
We could. Sometimes with the wheat flour, we need a little more leavening. So we would need a little more liquid maybe as far as milk. And we would also need just a tad more baking soda. You might even need a little more salt. This recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I would also add pepper. We're going to add pepper to ours. And
And we will post the recipe for this in the chat.
I'm going to put a little pepper. And thanks to Miss Kristen, we do have some garlic powder. I think that's essential as well. Or
Anyone who's
garlic,
watching,
whatever you
so
have.
Tammy added in some pepper and garlic powder, which isn't in the recipe, but is a fantastic flavor addition. If you have what other seasonings you might use in this recipe to add to the flavor of the spinach and onions, you can go ahead and post that in the chat.
Next, we have 2 beaten eggs. I keep forgetting where I'm supposed to be showing this.
That's okay.
Right like that.
They are eggs.
Trust me, they're
Yes,
eggs.
they are.
Beautiful, fresh brown eggs from Miss Kristen's chickens.
Wonderful.
We do it up right.
Yes. All right, so what are we down to? Cheese.
Oh, yes.
All right, so 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. You can buy it shredded or you could shred it yourself, whatever you have in the fridge.
And the low-fat version works very well in this.
Something I was thinking is that if you like feta cheese, that would be a good option for this, and then maybe some dill, and you would kind of get that Greek flavor going on. I think oregano would be delicious in this as well.
Yes.
Yes, that's such a good point. You can change it up however you like it. It's really a great basic recipe. I mentioned, I think before, mushrooms. My family loves mushrooms. I would have thrown those in with the onion probably and the spinach and then tossed it in now. So
Yeah, your egg mixture is basically just your palate for whatever you have in your refrigerator. I often make a quiche or this egg dish if I have, especially if I have broccoli, carrots, and cauliflower left over. I'll go ahead and just chop that up, put it in here. Of course, you wouldn't have to saute it first. Just chop it up, put it in here, and bake it. So now I think we're ready to add our spinach. As you can see, where are we going here with this? As you can see, that was a lot of spinach, and it is like 1/4 of the size that it was. Whew, that's hot.
it got kind of hot, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
We're gonna go with it.
Now
Our
you can
onions are
use
nice and
other,
brown. I love it.
Lots of flavor in that.
It's kind of noisy.
so other leafy greens would work in this. One thing that I just keep in mind is like sturdier greens, kale or collard greens. They just might take a little longer depending on how soft you like them. Spinach wilts very quickly. In fact, this you could probably just put in the pan for just a minute or two and it would be soft enough to add. So
Yeah, you could do this recipe with kale as well.
And this is baby spinach, correct? And we left the stems on. You might have mentioned that, but they cook up very nicely in here. You don't have to take the time to take the stems off if you don't want to. But that can be a fun job for little hands in the kitchen, so.
Yes. stirring.
And speaking, I
it.
forgot to mention when we were going through the recipe that this does include a cup of milk. So this is a great way to use milks that might be coming and building up in your refrigerator if they're
Oh,
not being eaten with
absolutely.
school meals.
Yeah.
And I
even,
loved it.
so
Sorry.
no, you go ahead.
I loved it that little Abigail was using a leftover container from school lunch is what it looked like. I think they said it was orange juice, but a milk container would do just fine to start planning your spinach.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Yeah, and one thing I did forget to mention since we are talking about school meals right now is that, meals continue to be distributed for virtual students. But if your students are going to school, meals are free for every student through the end of the school year. So, that is another way to just supplement your family's food budget is to make, let schools take care of meals if your kids are in school, and that saves money in your pocket for other for other meals that you can serve your family. And if your students are hybrid, they can eat meals for free in school and then pick it up on the days or on the asynchronous learning days.
All right, so
So
Mandy already has our dish ready to go, already sprayed with the vegetable oil. Now, we already have one that's been prepared. I don't know why I can't get this right.
There we go. Is that right? Oh, there you go. Forgive us. It's our first time. Okay. But what
Right.
size pan is this?
This is a 9 by 12.
Okay.
So the quiche itself turned out quite small. So today, just as a change, we're going to put it in a glass dish a little bit bigger.
Mhm. I think this is 9 by 7, kind of an odd size, but it'll end up a little bit thicker than
Yes.
this one.
and then you might just have to adjust your baking time a little bit. It might take a little longer to cook if it's
Going to take a
batter
little
is thicker.
longer. Yeah. Sometimes with a glass dish, now this isn't a whole lot of food, but sometimes with the glass dish, it's maybe even a little bit better to turn it down to 325 instead of 350. And like Krista said, bake it a little longer.
Yes.
I did want to share, we have some comments that raw garlic would be great in here.
Mm-hmm.
A pinch of red pepper flakes. I love adding red pepper to stuff.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
that would be good.
my food isn't as spicy now that I have young kids as it used to be, but you can always add that on at the end. And Roberta loved your ideas for changing up the recipe to use leftover vegetables. And that's another way you're often getting vegetables with school meals. If they maybe have carrots or broccoli, that those could be chopped up and just lightly cooked and then added to the batter.
Yeah, that's a great point, Carissa, about school vegetables. They don't get eaten. And you can save them and throw them into a recipe like this. I like that idea.
You would have to saute them first, and I'm going to just.
Okay, we're getting the last little bit out and then
I have to clean out my bowl.
she's cleaning it out with a spatula. Getting every last bit.
All right.
And so we have posted a couple of links in the chat about growing salad greens in salad boxes, which are basically just a shallow wooden box, almost like a drawer that you could plant in. I actually once did use an old wooden drawer to plant salad greens in, as well as our video from last week about how to set up our snap pea grow kit, which is just another idea for growing in upcycled containers. Right, so we're ready for the oven?
Yes, we are ready for the oven. It's been preheated to 350.
There you go.
Right, great.
Yeah,
So
the rack basically in the middle.
Mhm. All right. And
we're going to look at our schedule of upcoming Make the Most series, and then we'll come back to you so we can take a look at the final presentation.
Okay.
That up here in a second. All right. So this is our social media feeds. Obviously, if you're watching us live, you've already found us on Facebook, but please like our page, turn on notifications so that you can see our posts. You'll know when we've got another live session coming up. You'll get an alert on your phone. But we also have our content. These are recorded. They show up on our Facebook page. But then the recorded sessions for the Make the Most series are also on our YouTube channel, so you can subscribe there. And also eatsmart.umd.edu is where all of our wonderful recipes live. So you can always go there to find the recipes that we make, as well as additional recipes, and you can search by ingredient, which is really wonderful because you can look for things that you have extras of in your kitchen. And then do we have the schedule of the upcoming sessions? All right, so today is spinach. We had, as you already know, next week we're going to be talking about lentils, which is really, sort of a pantry staple. And I know you have a bag of them in the back of your pantry that you just have not used, and you haven't really had any great ideas for using, but we will be talking about that and setting up a little growing experiment with them. Following week, we're going to be talking about the star of the season, which is tomatoes. They usually go in the ground in early May. We're going to be giving you a little head start so you can be inspired to plant a tomato plant and have some time to go out and get your materials for that, and then cook with them. Talk about celery on April 22nd, and then finally a showcase of school gardens. So we hope you join us always Thursday at 11 a.m. here on our Facebook page. So ladies, let's see what we have going on there. Right. Would you mind holding that up so we can see it in the camera there? All right.
As you can see, they're quite thin because we used the larger pan. So we're going to use the smaller pan, so it should be just a little thicker this next batch that comes out. But it does look delicious. You can see the cheese, you can see the onions, you can see the spinach, of course, and I'm the lucky one because I get to taste.
We're getting lots of yums in the comments.
That's good.
Very yummy.
I would love this as a savory breakfast. I'm more of a savory person than a sweets person. So I think this would be delicious for breakfast. You get some vegetables in at breakfast as well as the eggs and the milk, for some protein to get you started on your day. It's a great snack and even a side dish at dinner. I think that's a great way to use some spinach. So, well, wonderful. I want to thank Tammy and thank Mandy for your presentation. I think our folks really enjoyed it. Thanks to everybody who joined us to watch. And we will be back here next week at 11 a.m. for more ideas to make the most. Oh, we've got one final.
Yes. Miss Kristen purchased the ingredients for this recipe, and for this pan it was about around $7. So that's not a bad price to have a meal for a family.
That is great. And then especially if you are able to grow a little bit of your own spinach, then that can supplement that as well. So wonderful. It's great. All right. Well, folks, we hope to see you back here next week for another installment of Making the Most. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.